Good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream. Today is September the 5th. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our H.O.D Recovery Services. You can reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Well, let's go ahead and get into our Just for Today meditation. Not hopelessly bad. We find that we suffer from a disease, not a moral dilemma. We were critically ill, not hopelessly bad. For many of us, Narcotics Anonymous was the answer to a personal puzzle of long standing. Why did we always feel alone, even in a crowd? We wondered. Why did we do so many crazy, self-destructive things? Why did we feel so badly about ourselves so much of the time? And how had our lives gotten so messed up? We thought we were hopelessly bad, or perhaps hopelessly insane. Given that, it was a great relief to learn we suffered from a disease, addiction, that was the source of our problems. A disease we realized could be treated. And when we treat our disease, we can begin to recover. Today, when we see symptoms of our disease resurfacing in our lives, we need not despair. After all, it's a treatable disease we have, not a moral dilemma. We can be grateful we can recover from the disease of addiction through the application of the 12 steps of NA. Just for today, I am grateful that I have a treatable disease, not a moral dilemma. I will continue applying the treatment for the disease of addiction by practicing the NA program. Powerful. Let's take a moment of silence followed by the wee version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. Yeah, when I reflect on, and maybe you can agree with this, the moment that I realized that this was a disease, then it changed my perspective about myself. Because I thought that I was self-destructive, that my life was messed up, that I was hopelessly insane, and that I was hopelessly bad. And I was in a battle, and I was losing desperately. I'm not sure if you can relate to that, but I know that I can. And I remember the moment that I understood that this was not a moral dilemma, but that I was critically ill, that I had a disease that could be terminal, but it also could be put into remission. It could be treated. And I was amazed at that. I remember that day. I remember thinking, okay, this is what I need to do to deal with that. And it's mostly a thinking disease. And that thinking disease is obsession. And when I obsess over something, generally speaking, until I receive it or take it, until I apprehend it, I am not going to stop obsessing. But when I get it in my hands, there is this natural desire to take advantage of it, to use it. And that is the compulsion of the disease of addiction. It's twofold, right? It's obsessive and it's compulsive. Obsessive, it's all I think about. Compulsive, it's all that I have to have. When is that ever okay? When is that ever our reality? When is it okay to have what you want and desire and to abuse it and expect the world to navigate themselves around my altered personality? I remember when I started to think about who I would become without it. I had already stopped using, but when I thought about who I would become, I began to balk. So for many years, I did not do the work. I just stayed clean. And because I wouldn't do the work, the lifestyle only changed minutely. It changed in a way that, sure, I could tell people I wasn't using anymore, but I was still lying. I was still cheating. I was still manipulating. I was still conning people. I was still cussing people out at a drop of a hat, always threatening violence to anyone that dared to offend my moral code. How would they even know it? When would they ever know it? I didn't share it with them, but I'm going to hold you. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire to honor my moral code, where you were going to pay a very high price. I raped the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. I hurt a lot of people. However, because of me finally getting a deeper level of desperation and the gift that it brings, I began to fight for my life. And part of the fight for my life meant that I needed a sponsor and that I could write the steps with that sponsor, and that sponsor would make themselves available and accessible to me, so that as I passed through life, all those affairs, I would be able to apply the spiritual principles of the 12 steps in all my affairs. People, I'm not talking about an overnight process. I'm talking about something that took a very long time. Now, granted, you can take a long time if you want, or you can just accept my experience, strength, and hope when I tell you that if you can get a sponsor and work the steps with that sponsor, and that sponsor agree in this day and age to be accountable, accessible to you and hold you accountable to your recovery, you have found something beautiful. And that's what you want. And if you have a sponsor, even if I'm your sponsor, even if you have a sponsor that you cannot network with, there's something about how they talk to you. They use this malicious style type recovery, and they're so direct, but they're harmful in their direct behavior. If you find that your sponsor just is never available, or maybe, like me, I only have one meeting a week that I go to in person, right? So if you find someone that you personally cannot work with, you need to start the hunt for another sponsor. I would never recommend letting your sponsor go before you have another one. I would never do that. But if you need another one, you need to get about the business of finding another one. Today, the medicine that we have to treat this disease is the application of the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. But it's not just treating our disease, it's treating everything else that came with it. All of the symptoms that proved that we were sick with the disease of addiction. Let me give you an example really quick, and then I'm going to let you go. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. The how of the program. Let's talk about honesty. I believe that every human being has a level of dishonesty that is within them, even right now. Now, it may be a person is in denial and they're being dishonest about what's going on because they don't have a real grip on the situation. In other words, they're being dishonest, but they're not necessarily intentionally trying to mislead. I'm talking about the person that is intentionally dishonest. They lie by omission. They never tell you the whole story. They only tell you what they think you want to hear. Maybe they still go to the store and shoplift here and there, some eyeliner, a piece of jewelry here and there. Maybe they borrow money and never pay it back, and they know they never will. There's so many different levels of dishonesty. The 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, in the very first step, it says, we admit it. We admit it. To admit something, you have to acknowledge the state of being, the status of the situation. It's firm, it's been there, it's not like no one else can see it. But you, me, we have to admit. That process of admitting that we're powerless over drugs, of admitting that our lives have become unmanageable. This is the polar opposite of dishonesty. We're finally willing to admit that we have a problem. Honestly, that is the spirit of the spirit of honesty at work. You see, it's not that complicated. The how, right? The open-mindedness. Are you open-minded? I think open-mindedness is part of step 2. We came to believe that we could be restored to sanity. I wouldn't consider a thing even if it's a bad thing. I wouldn't consider something unless I was absent or void of the something that I'm about to consider. Here, I'm considering the fact that I can be restored to sanity. I came to believe that our lives, my life could be restored. So do you see where now open-mindedness is a part of step 2? I'm starting to think different. I'm starting to believe different. Oh my goodness, I can be restored to sanity. What does that mean? Because if insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, then that means that if I believe I can be restored to sanity and not insanity, it means that I'm not going to continue to do the same things over and over and expecting different results. I am going to understand that if I pick up the first one, all bets are off. This is a meditation that is worthy of consideration throughout the day. This is one of those meditations you want to bend the flat back on the page or put a 5-star on it and come back to it. Because here in this meditation, it's going to show you that, yeah, maybe you seem to have been hopelessly bad or hopelessly insane, but you aren't today. You have a disease, and it's going to show you when you're feeling down and negative, it's going to show you that this disease is treatable. This is not a moral dilemma. It's not a judgment on your character because you're willing to change your behavior. And you're willing to practice the NA program as an antidote. Yeah, our basic text says honesty is the antidote to diseased thinking. Back to the how of the program. My name is MightyStream. I've enjoyed talking with you today, and I will be talking to you tomorrow.